Hi everyone, so in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how ideas like carceral urbanism, the war on drugs, and the crack epidemic myth spread within the US, and why so many people believe them. After everything that we've talked about and learned throughout this semester, we can really see that none of these ideas happened on accident. They were pushed, repeated, and in the end normalized to the point where so many people don't even question them anymore. One thing that really stuck out to me was how carceral urbanism basically gets baked into our system or like our everyday environment. So like certain neighborhoods, particularly low income Black and brown areas, they get more police, more cameras, surveillance, but they don't get that amount of resources. They get less and less resources. So when police is constantly seen in these areas or in general, it creates the automatic belief that the neighborhoods are dangerous, even though the danger comes from years of disinvestment and policies, not exactly from the people living there. So the public sees all the policing that goes on in these areas, and they feel like, oh well, if there's all these police there, then it must be necessary because it's so dangerous. So that's like the kind of mentality that people get. The war on drugs is another perfect example. We know that politicians, specifically in the 80s, they used fear to make drugs look like these huge criminal threats, even though half or more than half of the time the drug use was more common, or if not, it was more evident in white communities than it was colored communities. But when the media would display it, they would only display low income Black neighborhoods, SWAT raids, mugshots, etc., etc. So when you see that same kind of story, that same image that they're portraying over and over again, it shapes how you think about or how you view these things without even realizing. And suddenly people are supporting harsh policies because they really believed crime was out of control, when in reality, the policies were targeting already vulnerable communities. And finally, there's the crack epidemic myth, which we learned wasn't even accurate at all. So crack and powder cocaine was, they're basically the same drug, but crack got punished like 100 times harder than coke did, even though they're the same thing. The media exaggerated everything, like crack moms, crack babies, just like the term we use now, crackheads. So all these racist stereotypes that made people think the government needed to crack down. And meanwhile, when the opioid crisis hit white communities, that was treated like a public health issue instead of the same way that crack or cocaine was treated. So that right there shows how these narratives they're not about the drugs, but more about who's using them. So I guess like this kind of sparks the idea, like, why do these stories get so accepted easily, and like why are they normalized, I guess you could say. So they benefit people in power, specifically politicians, because politicians, they get votes off of fear, and the criminal justice system, because of that, gets more funding, media gets more views and profits, and they profit off of these exaggerated crime stories, which it's clear because people feed off of drama, off of lies, and all that kind of stuff. So on top of that, these narratives make it easier for society to ignore all the real issues that are laying under all of that, like racism, poverty, housing, discrimination, and the further lack of resources. So it's easier for people to blame the individuals and to admit the whole system was built like this. It's easier to point fingers at one person than to actually look back and see who's creating the problem. So all of this, as we know, it shapes our everyday life. It affects how neighborhoods are built, who gets targeted by the police, how schools are funded, how people get treated in stores when they're out in public, and even how people view themselves. So a lot of people now still don't question it because it's just been so normalized and, well, this is just how things are. So they just accept it for what they've seen for so long. So my final question after today's discussion is, why do you think so many people still hold on to tough on crime ideas even when we've seen that they actually don't make communities safer at all?